Look, bruh, all I'm doing is connecting the dots.
A work of art of the highest quality.
And what will you do with the big money?
But I guess I'll make a lot of money, so here I am.
Connect the dots, be clear.
But music was noise, and I thought art was bullshit.
I want to be an artist.
Oh.
I'm not a piece of art! Yes, bravo! I'm a peacock flying into a...
If money is all that you love, then that's what you'll receive.
It really was. It was a work of art.
It's not about money. It's about sending a message.
Hey, just look at that sky. It's a work of art. Ha, nature never knew colors like that.
A man can be an artist. And anything, food, whatever. It depends on how good he is at it. Creasy's art is dead. He's about to paint his masterpiece. It's a work of art.
Make that money, get paid.
Man, this is going to be a masterpiece.
Bothered to connect the dots.
This is an art gallery, my friend. And this is a piece of art.
Simply connecting the dots.
Yeah, well, money talks and bullshit walks, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's how much you know about art.
You could make a lot of money making movies like this.
You have to be a bit of a rebel to be an artist of any kind, I believe.
You're gonna make a lot of money, pal.
Only a highly suspicious paranoid cynic, or someone like me, with an eye for clues and patterns, could possibly connect the dots.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Connect the Dots. I'm your host, Justin Stillmaker, the show where we dig into that fun topic of art and money. So happy everyone tuned in today. But I can't wait to dive in. So my first topic today is about TikTok. My endless fascination with it continues. So on earlier episodes of the show, I've talked about how I believe TikTok is slowly replacing TV. It's not streaming, it's TikTok. It's the thing you watch before you go to bed. It's in your hand. We're constantly looking at it if you've given in. And a way you're starting to see this creep I kind of wanted to highlight this week, which is TikTok interviews. So I don't know if you've noticed, but more and more movie stars and bigger media are going to TikTok to promote whatever new thing they have. This became really kind of clear to me when Jennifer Lawrence, when she had her comedy out in June, No Hard Feelings, made the rounds on like every TikTok interview show. She was on Chicken Shop. She was on like the Giggly Squad with Hannah Berner. And I couldn't help but notice that's like, 5 years ago, she would not have been on these types of shows. She wouldn't be doing an Instagram show. She wouldn't be promoting this hard. But like two things are becoming very clear. One, the strike was just starting to happen and still is happening, thankfully. And going on a TikTok show is a way to go around the writer's strike and be SAG shows, because like right now all the talk shows, the Jimmy Fallon, the type of place where you do promotion would be happening, but these TikTok shows don't have writers. They probably do, but they're not gilded, they're not union. And so to me, seeing people begin to promote more and more, particularly on these things, is a kind of an end around, though I've noticed since the actors strike, they've gotten a lot more hardlining about like, you can't be on this. But I think more than anything, it's starting to speak to this idea that TikTok is where you need to go to do your promotion. I've talked to a few people who work in PR here in LA, and they talk about how the numbers of TikTok influencer just in the movie space can get you is so much bigger than like Jennifer Lawrence can get on her own Instagram saying she has a new movie out. It has the eyeballs, and it has the eyeballs of the youth, the people with the most discretionary income, to go to the movies. And so as a movie guy, watching TikTok have this like shift balance of power is really kind of like fascinating. I mean, I'll admit I'm like been trying to figure out how it all kind of works. Like there's the big obvious ones of like the Chicken Shop, the Hannah Burner, the Giggly Squad. Joe Rogan has his like clips up on, so there's still a way they're doing the promotion. But I think more than anything, it's just proving that like TikTok has this real power to get people. Like I think the Barbie movie and Oppenheimer are huge successes, but I think part of it was, as we talked about on another episode, but like I think part of it was that it was so ingrained into the internet culture, and TikTok couldn't be more of that. And so like the New York Times this week actually published an article about the rise of the TikTok movie reviewer and how just guys just like me talking about movies with their little earpiece are really able to drive numbers to the theater and really create awareness, when now, because everything is so splintered, you're not able to get any kind of awareness. And one of the few places you can, because it's the new television, is TikTok. I mean, what's interesting is like as a person, like I've saw a lot of film critics I follow on Twitter get upset about these kind of like movie reviewers because they're being paid by the studios to review these movies, and they're being paid to give a positive review. And so they're not really disclosing that because they don't view themselves as journalists. And so I just want people to go to the movies, so I don't really care about the ethics of that. But there's a classic thing going on right now where like TikTok has the power, and that's where the money's going to go. And that's allowing art to kind of like, this is how we're going to get people back to the movies. We're going to get TikTok influencers. I've heard producers say if you have an in with a couple different TikTok people with enough audience, enough influencers, you can almost get a movie greenlit, because if they guarantee you they'll do 2 or 3 reviews, pushes, do a video where they go to the theater, that means almost $1 million in ticket sales to the studios, and you can use that to inflate your budget. And so I think that's just like insane. Again, like when I started seeing those movies start popping up on there, I just kind of made a note. I was like, once again, this is sort of the thing I love to chase down, where it's like, why is this happening? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it helping? And I gotta say, like, I don't love all these interview shows. It's not I'm like an older white dude. I like, like the Giggly Squad isn't for me, but like they seem to have like a real joy and enthusiasm for these things coming out. And like, I just like am addicted to that, because I'm like, I just want people to go to the theater. It's helping TV shows. Right now, I think there is a bit of a pause because of the strike, but it's going to be really interesting after that. Like, see how useful TikTok continues and whether that will continue, or at a certain point, will there be a new social thing that kind of defangs it and it loses its power. And so, I just wanted to talk about how TikTok interviews are literally changing the movie business and the television business and how it operates. And that's what I wanted to approach for the first topic of today. But now is my favorite part of the show. I get to bring on a guest, one of my old friends. We've been knowing each other for, oh my God, like at least over a decade, almost coming close to 2 decades. He's a writer, producer, and my favorite AD of all time, Josh Schilling. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, how are you, buddy?
Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. It really just an excuse for us to hang out. But
I'll take that excuse anytime.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I should just start with like a basic one I like to ask all my guests, is like, because all our careers are weird in this business, which is, how do we know each other? How did we meet?
I don't actually remember. I think we were both coming up at the same time. So like we were both kind of doing like crappy stuff at the same time, right? Like, so like neither of us had a budget. You were writing a lot and directing a lot of like small web series, and I was just looking for AD work anywhere I could get in. Yeah. And I was just looking for AD work wherever I can get in. So I think we just kind of met, got along, and then you kept doing this. You kept writing stuff, and I just kept showing up because I had nothing better to do.
I should probably tell the audience, I think the first time we worked together was a true, like, as usual, suicide mission, which is like we're trying to do 50 or 60 pages and like do 10 pages a day, like always pushing Josh to his limits.
We did. I remember there was a show about the guy, it was like the social club guys that sit out on the street.
Oh yeah, bookies.
And bookies. It was bookies, and we did 31 pages in a day. I remember that specifically. I think that's the most I've ever done in a day.
Yes.
Still to this day. Yeah. No.
I mean, one, I just hubris and pure insanity, but like I don't even understand how that was approved by China and other producers at the time.
They were sitting around a table, so like I understand how we did it. It was like, you know, this angle, shoot 30 pages. Come to this angle, shoot 30 pages. You know, come around. So it wasn't. There was no crane. There was no dolly. You know, it was all Scott, I believe, just with the little handy
Oh
cam.
yeah, it was Scotty, who's like a union gaffer now on the Bear. Like our little boy made it.
Oh, he's on the Bear. Awesome. Yeah, nice.
Shout out to Scotty.
I'm super happy about that show.
Yeah, that's it gets Chicago well, I think, especially the second season. Okay, so we were like kind of knocking around the same time, and I kept dragging you in on one crazy show after another. But like, how did you get into film? How did you even get to that point?
Well, I was like, when I was a kid, I was like a big horror nerd. So like my dad and mom had like no compunction about showing me horror movies. So like, there's like those people, we have to close their eyes or their ears and stuff like that. No, that was not my family. I remember I was like 9 when I saw Friday the 13th Part 4, which I think was like just boobs everywhere, and like it was just sex and boobs everywhere, and like my parents like literally left the room and let me watch it. So and then I got into like Fangoria and into like really culty kind of horror movies. You know, I used to go to I'm of the Zennial age where we used to go to the video store every day and like $2 to rent a movie, and me and my friends would go there and rent like 5 movies. So I knew that I wanted to do that, and then I got so I knew I wanted to make movies, and I wanted to do like special effects, you know, like The Thing and all that gore and makeup. I particularly loved the Thriller, the making of the video Thriller with John Landis, where they did like all the background and all that, and then Jurassic Park came out, which pretty much killed that career unless you're Stan Wilson. So then I decided to become an actor, and then the hubris when I went to college was, well, if I go to school for directing, I could hire myself as an actor. And then I was like, wow, genius. If I go to school for producing, I can hire myself to direct and then cast myself to act. And then promptly learned that was all a bad idea, and then fell backwards into becoming a first AD. So, and then here we are.
There's a couple things I want to unpack from there, but I do think there's something amazing about as a kid, like there's something about movies when you're young that it's the special effects that draw you in, right? Like I had a similar, like just in the video store renting movies, but I remember the day it crossed the threshold was Independence Day, where they like blew up the White House, and I remember going to see that in the theater, and I was like, I need to know how you do this. And I think that's the addicting part, right?
Yeah, the secrets, right? Like the secret behind what happens, you know, like, it's still to this day, you know, I'll be watching something with my wife and I'm like, you know, that's not really there. It's behind this thing and there's a guy around the corner and blah, blah, blah. You know, it's just like part of the charm of it. And also just the ability to learn to be able to, I guess it's nerdy, but like being able to move people in a certain way. And horror is like one of the ways you move people, you know, you can make them cry, you can make them scream, whatever, you know. So I just like to personally I like to scream more than I like to cry when I watch movies.
It's like that's really, I agree. Like I never really thought about like, because of the ego of what we do as well. It's like I need to know the secrets, and I either want to terrify you or make you laugh. But either way, that's an instant reaction. I need the feedback loop, because you love comedy,
the immediate gratification. Oh yes, of course. I love everything. We've talked about this a lot over the years. How horror and comedy are very similar because it's all about setup and payoff, and you know, setting it up in such a way that the payoff actually hits.
If you had to pick one, though, do you have a favorite, horror or comedy?
Horror, just because I'm better. I think I'm better at horror than I am at comedy. Comedy is too hard for me. You have to actually have skill.
Yeah, I also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do feel this about comedy, that like if it's a lot of fun on set, it's never quite as good on the actual film. Have you experienced that?
You mean for comedy?
Yeah.
For comedy? Like if it's a lot of fun on set, it's not. I don't watch a lot of the movies that I've made as a first AD, so it's hard to say. But I do. I think if it's a lot of fun, I would imagine as an AD, I like to keep it fun on set. So I hope it's funny, because if it's not, then like I guess Christopher Nolan's going to be a great comedian, because those. I hear
That's true. There's a middle ground. I just find I think horror sets are just so much more fun because it's so ridiculous. And I know you've worked on a lot of horror films. Is there something you remember just walking onto set and being the most ridiculous thing you've come across?
I don't know about the most, but I know every time it's my favorite time talking to actors is when they're getting ready for a horror scene. They'll be sitting there. These are serious people who work very hard on their craft, and they take everything seriously. And then now it's 4 a.m., it's 20 degrees outside, and people are dumping buckets of blood on their head. And they're just shivering. And I always just walk up to them hey, I remember when I was a kid, and I was I want to be an actor when I grow up. So it really, I think it's well, now here you are. You could have been a banker. But no, now it's 4 a.m. and you're drowning in blood. So good job.
You're out here with us, suckers.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there something that you because I know you watch a lot of horror, you've worked on a lot of stuff. Is there something you've always wanted to try that you haven't seen, or a practical effect that you're obsessed with trying in something you make?
I always I like practical effects, obviously, just because it's just more hands-on. I like the way to me, the computer graphics haven't gotten to the point where it's as visceral as pus shooting out of a boil in somebody's face is in effects. It looks like a cartoon still, even as great as they've gotten these days. But so I like the hands-on nature of it. So basically just more. I haven't done enough. I've done a bunch, but not as much as I would like to do with practical effects, and be able to actually, because I work in the indie space, I would love to be able to spend a whole day on a practical effect instead of guys, we got 14 more shots. We got 14 more shots. Make that blood work now. Get it going. I
have realized similarly, I've been doing more practical effects lately, but I have never done blood because my inner AD, which sounds a lot like you, is always this is going to take too much time. We can't, blood just seems like an utter nightmare on set to keep cleaning up. I'm correct, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Anything like that is a nightmare on set. Whenever I read a script and it's they spill milk on themselves, or any kind of liquid, I'm can we make him not? Is it that important? Because that every take is you have to take it all off, clean it all off, do everything. If it's not that important to the script, let's just cut it, and we can pretend we can spill it on the ground or something like that. We don't have to get it on the wardrobe, please. But it's varying degrees of success. People listen to me, and
I obviously always listen. Yeah. Is there any other red flags when you're reading a script that you're just as an AD to because I have found we have a lot of young filmmakers watching. So what's a red flag to you when you're reading a script?
Any sort of effects at all is going to be a red flag to me, just because generally when you're working on indie films, unless the people, your directors and your producers are really experienced and you got a really great team, nobody really knows how long that's going. Nobody anticipates the correct amount of time of how that's going to take. If you got I read a script once where I hope this doesn't give away the movie, but there was blood in a body of water. There was a body of water and blood had to be spilled in the body of water. And I was how you get one take of that? Are we going to drain all the water and clean it all out and do it all again? Are we coming back every day to do this? What is the, and they were insistent on it being practical. And I was okay. And I don't think that shot made the movie because it didn't look right. And obviously didn't have, You know, the whole water turns pink or whatever, and it goes away.
Yeah.
But it's just the things like that I think people don't really anticipate all the little, you know, directors and producers have a lot on their mind. So like the actual, this is going to take 7 minutes every single time or something like that. They can't focus on that kind of thing all the time, which is why hopefully they bring me on.
Yeah. No, it's you actually like justified a feeling I had. So when me and Josh worked together a ton, I was always doing comedy, and like comedy you can kind of cover, and like if something's not working, you sort of know like I'll shoot this actor, we'll get a close up, I can fake it. Anything with practical or horror or action, you have to get it right in camera or you can't move on. So like there's no way to predict the time. Everything just gets longer. It's
no, exactly. And you can lose the whole movie, right? You can like lose the whole movie. So like, oh well, and this crucial part of the movie, this has to happen. So if it doesn't happen and you don't have time for it or whatever, there goes your whole movie, right? Because that's like your production value or a plot point or something like that. And if you don't get it, you got to sit there and get it. You know, it's not like you can't change the joke or improv something different or, you know, we'll just do some connective tissue to make the scene continue.
Yeah, like it only works one way. Like I was watching like a behind the scenes of James Cameron's Aliens, and like they got like the Queen, and like it looks stupid from every angle except this one angle, and we got to get it this way, the exact way. And it's just like it sort of broke my brain as a director. I'm like, oh God, there's no way to do that. You need a Josh. We need you.
Well, I mean, I imagine James Cameron is also extremely particular, right? Like, I think he seems like the kind of guy that would take 5 years to make a movie and to get every piece right, and it would cost him $2 billion. That kind of guy. So
fair.
And it's been but whereas a lot of times I've worked on, unfortunately, again, working in the indie space, I've worked with a lot of directors that are kind of like, yeah, we got to go, we got to move, let's move on. We can't, which is nice. For me, because then we make our days, but also kind of I imagine it hurts the product in the end.
I was gonna ask, what's your like least favorite part about ADing?
I don't know. I like it all pretty much. I don't really have a least favorite part. I guess it would be
post-production.
I guess we're just it's about the people. It's about the people, right? So if I'm working with you know what it is? I don't know how many, don't let this, I don't like working, the least favorite part, let's not say it, I don't like it. My least favorite part is working with really, really newbie directors who may not understand anything and aren't used, like I work with some directors sometimes who have never worked with an AD, right? So I go up to them and they're used to doing like their little films by themselves, and now they got this budget and they're like, yeah, I can do whatever I want. And I'm like, no, you can't. You got 15 minutes. Let's go. And they don't like that. And it kind of grinds them the wrong way sometimes. They're like, I worked so hard to make this movie, to get this money. And now finally this jerk is telling me I can't get the thing I want. And and when that happens, I've learned over the years, all I do is just let the world teach them. I'm like, okay, let's do it again. Let's do it and see what happens. I'll give you a warning or 2 warnings, and then we're going to see what happens. And your movie may suffer, or the crew may, start rolling their eyes at you, kind of thing. So that's probably the least favorite thing. I still like working with new directors, but just not as much as
No, it's a thing because like as a director, I'm like at some point you get broken in the like I know what this is like we're losing, like you can feel the time and the sand running out of the hourglass. But also you want to have that like hope of like, this is the most important thing ever. We have to stop till we get it. And like, you got to find that like middle ground, and new directors haven't quite found it yet. They're all the way one where I feel like I'm always trying to get to the middle there. And also like the AD job is so hard because it's like, you kind of have to be the person to go in there and break people's like, you're like, we gotta move on. And like Josh does a really great job of like, still making you love him while doing it. That's the
because it's not me. I can always say it's not me talking, right?
Right.
It's math, or like it's time. I can't stop the earth from spinning. So we could sit here and talk about it, or we can go shoot what we can to get it done and then move on. And it's what's the quote? I always like to say that it's it's a director's job to make a good movie. It's my job to make a movie. So we got this much time. We got this to do it. We got this much time. We got to do it. It's your job as the director to make it good. So like, for me, I'm like, as long as it's done, the producers are happy with me, and I'll get hired again.
That's incredibly true, but that's gonna get broken up for sure. I was gonna say that you have like I remember once you told me on a commercial, it haunts me to this day. Was just like it's like you divide the day into like a series of like 7 minutes or 15 minutes. Like how you think of the set.
Yeah.
What is your like? I remember you had like an equation.
Chunks.
Yep. And
well, I just take the amount of I do have an equation. I just have like you take the amount of hours in the day, you divide it, and you just divide it by how many minutes is that, and then you divide it by how many shots you got, and then you got your average amount of shots. So if somebody comes to me like, oh, we got 30 shots, I'm like, okay, that's about 16 minutes a shot. You think we can do that? And then I look at the cinematographer. And the cinematographer goes, and then we both look at the director, and the director goes, okay, well, maybe we'll combine some things. And then I go, okay, yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
I don't know why, once you put it into like 15 minutes chunks, like every now and then, like there's just a point every time it's set where like just something is got a snag, and you can just 15 minutes just like disappears on you. And I'm just like, I can already start to feel the end of the day creeping close. You're like, okay, what shot do I have to start combining now?
No, yeah, exactly. That's what my leverage I use on people. I'll say like, okay, so this is going to take. If you want another take, for example, we have like somebody has to spill milk on themselves and they have to change their costume, and we're tight on schedule. And I'll say, okay, well, it's going to take them at least 15 minutes to change that shirt. Do you want the extra take, or do you want that extra shot you got planned later in the day? Because it's one or the other. You get, because again, I work in the indie space where we don't go overtime because they don't have the money for that. So It's like if 15 minutes, like I said, if it's 30 shots a day, which is about what we work on indie rate or the indie like world, and it'll be like that's a whole shot you've lost now. So go into your go into your little storyboard and cross one out because that's what we're gonna have to deal with now. Yeah.
Okay, I have an AD question that I've just always wanted to ask you. Why do all insert shots take forever?
Because they don't take forever. They take longer than you think because they have their shot, right? They have to be lit. You got to move the camera over there. You got to get the art's going to want to touch it. The gaffer's not going to just let you walk. Like I work with some directors that are like, oh, we'll just shoot it. We'll just shoot it real quick. And the gaffer's like, hold on, I want to do my job, please. And then the production designer or the art director or whoever's on the set deck is going to be like, well, I would like to do my job, please. And next thing you know, you got like a product shock for a McDonald's commercial going. Like, oh, well, we got to move 2 inches this way, 2 inches this way, and can we spray it with like a little glycerin to make it shine? It's like, no, man, we gotta. But also, they also go really fast. They're easy to go fast if you just pressure the director a little bit.
That's fair. There's something. My favorite thing is an insert shot involving an actor where they have to like say a line and then just like we just need an insert of this line and then you chug a cup of that milk that you're about to spill. There's something like the actor can't ever like the DP is always like we'll just shoot this one moment. I'm like it's not the act. We're not gonna. It's just like I can always feel the collision.
Yeah, you got to do the whole thing.
You gotta. It's okay. That's good.
Yeah, it's always better to do the whole thing. You're not gonna get that little moment.
Yeah, like. I was just talking to a DP about that today. I was like, he's like, well, we can save time. I'm like, it doesn't. I know this is your dream, but I've never seen it happen on a set ever. Mm-hmm. What's one of the most favorite things you've actually worked on? Like, I mean, you've worked on all kinds of films. I know mostly in the indie space, but like, there has to be a few ones you produced. I mean, you've produced a lot of films with Red Leg as well, like, and me.
Yeah, little stuff. My favorite film my favorite film I've ever worked on in my life was one I produced a long time ago. There was the Roll Initiative. We entered the 72-hour film festival, and in that 72 hours, we wrote, shot, scored, and edited a musical. And I was always been very proud of that. We knew when we were going in, we're like, screw this. We're doing a musical, and we got enough people together that by the end we had, you know, a full musical that I was really super proud of to have done in 72 hours. We ended up winning the competition. So that was that's like, I guess, in my heart, still my favorite.
It's deep in my soul the most Josh thing I've ever been involved with. I feel like it like combines like a lot of different nerdy loves. It's really funny. It also was just emotionally effective, and it was a chaos of a production.
Yeah. I think I slept 3 hours out of that 72 hours, and that's less Dan, our director and editor, didn't sleep at all, because he was while I was sleeping he was editing. I was like, I'll stay up with you, buddy, in solidarity, and then I went in the other room and was like, wow. Like, I just couldn't do it. So he made it. Yeah.
I remember being part of like the writing of that, and then at my apartment having a bunch of people recording in my like guest bedroom, like because they were like had to work because they had to figure out all the songs before while you guys were like setting up everything to shoot. It was like everywhere you went was just like,
yeah, we did
like being in a cult.
Yeah, we actually now that I think about it, I haven't thought about the movie in a while, but now that I think about it, we kind of innovated the Marvel technique in that we got our action sequences first. Like, these are our songs. This is what's going to happen. This is how we're going to do it. And then we wrote the script as that was being done, as they were recording those songs, we were figuring out the rest of what's going to happen to lead to those songs. So, yeah, I'll take credit for that, Kevin Feige.
Yeah, you completely. I have my mental image of you is always after you won, you were like holding, like, I forgot what the award looked like. We were smoking a cigar. We were like in Pilsen and like in the middle of nowhere, Pilsen. You were smoking a cigar, holding an award. And I was just like, this is who Josh wants me to remember him as. And so now that's my screensaver in my brain when I think of you is that.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, that was.
Oh, yeah.
It's on YouTube still, right?
It was great. I think I still have. Yeah, it is somewhere. It's on I think it's Red Leg PFP is the channel, and it's called Roll Initiative, a D&D musical. And it's exactly what it is. It's a musical about Dungeons and Dragons. So, you know, way before the Dungeons and Dragons movie too. This was like 12 years ago.
You were innovating.
I have a statue somewhere. I have the trophy somewhere, but I don't know.
Yeah, that was a blast to work on because it felt new and fresh. Like the approach. Well, dude, let's end there because like that was such a fun shoot, and like you and me will just ramble on and complain about sets in different ways, and we have careers, so we can't do that on air.
Right.
So, but I'm gonna be in Chicago soon. Let's meet up and actually do it in person where we can get away with it. So, but
sounds great, man. Thanks for having me on. This has been fun.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on, Josh. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon. All right. So now we're on to my second favorite part of the show, which is where I get to nerd out to you about subgenres. So this week I am talking about Hereditary Clones. What are Hereditary Clones? Well, I don't know if you've seen the movie Hereditary, and I don't know which person I'm actually talking to here. Huge horror movie. Like, everyone saw it, like, you know, a big hit, not like a Marvel-sized hit, but like for a small-budget horror movie, this movie really changed things. And I think what it introduced was this wave of films after it that are absolutely all made in a mirror of it, like trying to be like it, but also uniquely weird. And again, now with time, that Hereditary comes out in 2018. It does really well. And then pretty quickly you start to see people like get that green light by trying to kind of bend the movie towards it. So first up, I want to talk about The Night House. It stars Rebecca Hall. It's a really excellent horror movie. Well, it's good. But to me, much like it follows this mirror of like the lead actress experiencing a certain kind of trauma, getting a little hysterical and over the top with it. That's where it like kind of has that similarity. It has like a weird visual motif to it. Like The Night House is like, you know, she finds out her husband dies, and then there's like a house across from her that's like the mirror image, and they get to do a lot of fun visual tricks while she's like dealing with all this guilt. The movie starts to fall apart at a certain point, but like it's really well done. And Rebecca Hall, much like Toni Collette, just gives a fantastic centered performance. And what it also begins is what I call like the trauma era movies, where like by the third act of these horror movies, these Hereditary Clones, you get movies that are just like, well, they're suffering trauma, so crazy stuff starts happening, and you don't have to explain it. Like, you know, the hardest part about writing a horror movie is like coming up with a great conceit and then pushing it far enough that like you still believe these characters will make the decision. And Hereditary, to its credit, I think is a little more having fun comedically than it is about processing trauma. It only really works sort of as a bit of a farce. And so the Night House is like kind of is like, what if we were completely serious about this? And again, really great centered performance. I remember one of the first movies I saw back in theaters after it came out, which then brings me to the next movie, Saint Maud. So Saint Maud comes out A24, I believe, just like Hereditary, the year after it. And it's because people are, you know, it's getting made because they can see those dollar signs. And this film is, again, about trauma. The lead character has a lot of it and is processing it, but it doesn't quite have the fun kind of gonzo energy of like Hereditary or The Night House. It's a little smaller, it's a little sadder, but it's also a little more scary. I would also say it really kind of unnerves you. And I would say the other like slight difference is Hereditary and Night House are a little more, because of bigger budgets, really more interesting visually, where Saint Maud is definitely a low budget indie, and so like the madness is a little more internal. So that is where it's like it but different. And so Saint Maud, I really recommend. Great lead performance. Also, Jennifer Ellie, I believe is her name. Is our like it's dark, it's pretty twisted, and it has a sad ending that once again, much like you, like, is this happening in the character's head? Is this really happening? I no longer know. Horror movies really work on that logic, but particularly it's in the processing trauma area of the Hereditary Clones. I think Saint Maud is a really interesting movie, and the two of them really make this counterpoint that you can see how they both took things from Hereditary, but then made it their own thing. Which brings me to the next movie I want to talk about, because I think this is like such a really weird one to talk about. So the movie is Halloween Kills. So this is the second Halloween movie in the David Gordon Dream trilogy, between where he came, the one in 2019 and the one that came out last year. It's, again, these like longer running franchises really start to show the trends, right? So like you can see, like, you know, in Nightmare on Elm Street, like at a certain point they became self-aware. The Scream movies become a little more aggressive. And so Halloween Kills getting thrown into the processing trauma era of Hereditary and Saint Maud's is really funny. I want to be clear. This is the first film I'm recommending that I actually don't really think is good, but I think is incredibly indicative of the era of the processing trauma. Like at some point, Michael Myers is like becomes this representation of like the whole town's like own guilt about racism and their terribleness, and that they need to punish Michael. And then we're supposed to feel sympathy for Michael himself because he's a victim of trauma. And it's like, sure, like if that was a real character, but these is Michael Myers. Like he's like an unkillable force. Like it has nothing to do with this. And the fact that like the Hereditary trend had gotten in and infects a completely different horror franchise is really, really, really fascinating to me. And Halloween Kills is just like, it has some fun stuff. Like it has, I think Judy Greer is really great. The Jamie Lee Curtis's granddaughter in the movie, I'm blanking on the actress's name, is like actually I think gives a phenomenal performance through all three. And I actually quite like the last Halloween Ends. But Halloween Kills, if you ever want to see like how the process, I think in a decade that movie is going to have like a real popularity, a little more as a comedy. And like it's entirely possible David Gordon Green was a little more tongue-in-cheek satirical with that movie, and I just didn't see it. But I think that movie stands out to me because it's like the Halloween has its own rules and the way everything works, and instead we're given a processing trauma movie, which is like not what I go to the Halloween movies for. And so this is where studios and people are like, it's just like this. And it's like, no, it's not like this. Don't conflate the two. Expect a lot of that coming after Barbie, but we'll save that for future episodes. So then I want to talk. So I mentioned these three movies are a kind, but in and of itself, I'm trying to do this thing where even Hereditary's origin kind of comes from, and it's the movie The Babadook from 2014. This Australian horror film was honestly probably one of the best horror films I've seen of the last decade. It really connects the story, the trauma to the horror. It's about a mother, basically the concept is simple as what if a mother really hates her child is what's underneath this movie. Now there's a monster and they invent a lot of things, but I think at its core is a really scary thought, and it's brilliantly directed by Jennifer Kent, she did a movie called The Nightingale after this. I think she's just to me, one of the best working directors today. I can't wait to see the next movie she makes. But The Babadook is just, to me, the better Hereditary. And I think Hereditary is more fun. The Babadook's a little scarier, a little meaner, and a little sadder. But it's a phenomenal horror movie. It's also a gay icon. So they noticed in the late 2010s, people at gay pride parades were dressing up as the Babadook. And people were wondering, or I certainly was wondering, why this happened. And it's because Netflix, for whatever reason, back on their on streaming, labeled it as an LGBTQ film. No reason why. I mean, I'm not saying it's not that kind of movie, but I don't think that was any of the intention. This is very much a certain horror movie. But queer people the world around seized on this and really started to have fun with how a corporation, again, sort of that art and money thing again, seized, just randomly threw something in there. And then people reacted off of it, and they started to go dressed as the Babadook. It's become, and here's where it gets even better. They've re-released a Blu-ray of the Babadook with the pride colors on the front of the DVD. So something that started as a joke because of a mislabeling by a corporation has now come all the way back around to make money for the same people that produced the movie. And that, to me, couldn't be more what I'm fascinated by with that connect the dots. So the trauma kills genre, or the trauma processing genre, I think is always good for horror. There's a lot of other movies like this that have kind of come in its wake. I just wanted to highlight, I think, the most interesting ones. But I think we're coming out of that a little bit. I think Barbarian was a good horror movie that kind of has taken us away from the trauma direction. And I'm really excited about that. So now we're on to Who Won Art, which is this week or every other week. And, I had a couple other things I was going to pick out, but I wanted to celebrate the great director, William Friedkin, who passed away last week. One of the all-time great American film directors, Chicago boy, so of course I like him. Always had a bit of a chip on his shoulder, always a bit blue-collar. But I don't know if he directed this little movie you may have heard of called The Exorcist. It's the only horror movie, I think one of the only horror movies to ever win Best Picture. He won Best Director. The movie is absolutely still chilling. I rewatched it after he passed, and I just think there's not a better, I can't imagine horror even as a genre without him. He made one movie in this genre, and we're still 50 years later that movie came out, feeling the effects he did with that movie. And I just think, again, every October, it's the vibe, the score, it, the scenes. It's been parodied a million times. It's been copied a million times. And yet the actual source is still strong. And so then William Friedkin also made one of the best cop films of all time. He made The French Connection, which I think is the clip I have. Yes, it is. Okay. The guy made a lot of great films. I can only highlight a couple. He made The French Connection, which is the movie he made, I believe, before The Exorcist, and won Best Director. It is one of the best cop movies of all time. I think it was really, it's got one of the best car chases of all time. Every car chase since is trying to find a way to copy it. And he, kind of got away with it. He basically just paid off some cops to let him shoot the chase scene how he wanted with real traffic. And it's still a pretty incredibly visceral film for from 1975, where sometimes those things don't hold up. I think French Connection still does. And Gene Hackman gives one of the all-time great movie performances as this as this racist cop. And I think up until that time, cops were always considered, maybe they'd be corrupt, but they were always good-hearted. And I think what's really interesting about Papa Doyle in The French Connection is it really gets at the heart of these are flawed, sometimes often awful people. And I think the French Connection really kind of kicked open the door for us to talk about that. And like part of that is because I think William Friedkin has this real documentary approach, a real like he got to be in the streets. That's why, of course, he thinks of the chase scene as like in the streets. But he's always trying to find the like most visceral way to tell you a story and the most realistic way. And he would go to great lengths. He sounds, to be honest, he sounds like a terrible director to work with as an actor. He's very punishing. He really tries to psychologically destroy you to kind of get the performance. But again, he made 2 masterpieces in a row. And then he made a third one that just wasn't as successful. So I think up next, Scott, is Sorcerer. So I think so. Or is it To Live and Die in LA? I gotta wait, guys. You gotta have to wait with me. This is To Live and Die in LA, right? Yeah. Okay. So To Live and Die in LA is like one of the best like action cop films you'll ever see. And I know I just said that about French Connection, but like To Live and Die in LA like is To Live and Die in LA is like this visceral, amazing cop film. It's like the long lost Michael Mann movie. It's like the difference between like Miami Heat or Miami Vice, the TV show, and Manhunter came together. William Peterson is like, again, a Chicago actor, so William Friedkin liked to work with his own. Really intense and brooding. William Dafoe, in one of his first big roles, plays a guy who's a great artist but has to counterfeit money to make a living, which I think is one of the best metaphors ever about trying to be an artist. So like William Friedkin is actually really influential in my thinking of like, oh, he's counterfeiting money. I make blockbusters because I need to make art, but I have to do it this way. And so he flat out has the characters do it. This movie has a 12-minute car chase that somehow tops the French Connections car chase. I don't know how he did it. It's long, it's brutal, it's terrifying. It's shot by my all-time favorite cinematographer, Robbie Mueller. It is such a perfect blast of LA 80s, if you're into that, but it's also just like super intense. It's definitely a little over the top, but like I can't recommend this movie enough, as well as Sorcerer, which we don't have a clip for, but is like a remake of Wages of Fear from 1955, but is like one of the most intense movies and kind of invents that like Michael Mann, Tony Scott style that I certainly love and like are very popular and still popular. And I think William Friedkin is also an innovator in that space, as well as Cruising. The guy just made, there's a run from like French Connection to Live and Die in LA, where he's just probably the best action director alive, one of the best directors of all time. Just like incredible masterpieces, a great shit talker, a great calling people as it is. Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, the main character is based on William Friedkin's like no bullshit, I'm going to tell you the truth. And like, I just think as a filmmaker, he really struggled with that like art and money. At a certain point, he no longer made money, but he still wanted to make art, and his budget's lowered, and he never quite got the juice there. But man, he had a decade run that I think is up there with one of the best of all time, one of the best streaks of great movies. And so I felt like I had to honor him with Who Won Art this week. And so, excellent movie. Sorcerer, Cruising, they're not in the clips show there, but they are also, I could go on all day, and anytime we want to talk about those, I will gladly jump in. Okay, so last thing is I want to give you like a little recommendation. It's summer, it's wrapping up here, it's hot, horror's coming, so I wanted to, the fall is coming, which to me means horror movies. So I wanted to recommend a movie that's, of course, on Tubi, the true movie lovers criterion. Return of the Living Dead. I think this movie is set on the 4th of July, so it's hot, kind of can hit the August vibes, but it has zombies in it. This, to me, is like one of the best horror comedies. Certainly one of the best horror comedies, but like honestly one of the best horror movies. This movie just moves. It is economical. It's funny. It's weird. Incredible makeup effects. As before our show, I was talking to our guest, Josh Schilling, and he told me this is the first zombie movie where the zombies actually eat brains. And we looked it up, and that's 100% true. How dare I doubt Josh? But I think it's so wild to me because everything I think about zombies is brains, and that doesn't happen until Return of the Living Dead in 1985. Just some of the best Tom Savini makeup you'll ever see. It's just like, I honestly mean this. This is like, the way this movie cuts is like what I always want horror movies. It just has this like, it's in motion, and it's like, I don't know. It belongs to one of my other favorite subgenres like punk teens up to no good. There's like nudity and gore, and it's tongue in cheek, and it's having fun. There's Nazi doctors. There's America bombing its own people. It's it's a wild movie. It's a wild ride, and it, like, again, every time I've showed it to people who've never seen it before, it always is like a guaranteed crowd pleaser. If you like horror movies, or if you like Shaun of the Dead or Reanimator, Return of the Living Dead is like one of the best you can do. And I feel like it really kind of gets that nice middle ground we're looking for between the heat of the summer and the coming fall vibes. And it's one of the best movies, and it's just sitting up there on free on Tubi, so you should go and watch it. So that brings us to the end of our show today. Thank you for everyone for watching. This was Connect the Dots. I can't wait to do our last show of the season in 2 weeks. I will see you all then.
I'll see you later, huh?
Wait.
I'll see you later. I bid you farewell and good luck, morons. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Then in the next episode...
Will take place 2 weeks from today.
Hey, that's all I gotta